Welcome back, everyone, to Tech Tuesday. I'm Kevin Hunter with Harry Brelsford, and you see some new faces on the screen. And Harry, I'm going to give you the honor of introducing our guest to our audience today. Take it away.
All righty. Well, I have a childhood friend, Tom Benkert, who's up in Alaska, where I spent many a year. So good afternoon, Tom. How are you today?
I'm doing better all the time, Harry. Good to see you, and good to see Kevin and Kerry as well. Thank you for coming.
You bet. And then we have Kerry Holtzman, who is a newer friend. I've known Tom my whole life. Kerry, I've probably known you just over a year. We met at a technology conference in Miami, Florida, just under a year ago.
I've known you more than 20 years, Harry. I don't mean to sound like a stalker, but it's great to have you meet me. So thank you for having me on the show.
There we go. And gentlemen, quickly, so Tom, give us the fastest 2 minutes in sports about your professional background in energy, and that's going to help set the table on why we're doing a YouTube technology makeover for Tom. So Tom, take it from the top.
Yeah, so about 4 years ago, I started a little website called on Facebook, page anyway, called Rational Thought, Energy, and the Environment. And it's been kind of a passive little hobby. And the reason I created that web page is to have a kind of a safe space for there to be rational conversations about energy and environmental issues. And me coming from a background, I mean, I've worked for Exxon, Chevron. I've been involved in financing of coal-fired plants, one of the largest in the country. One of the largest solar panel manufacturers, one of the largest wind farms, and been involved in energy and environmental issues on both sides of the coin. And so I'm hoping to create a space where there can be a dialogue instead of this politicized, it should all be coal and all oil, or it should all be solar panels and windmills, and having some sort of a balance. Because the things are changing, and in my mind it's kind of all of the above, and not any one solution is the perfect fit for every situation, and people tend to generalize too much about that. And so I like to bring my last 15-20 years of experience in those areas and create that kind of dialogue to help inform people about the reality of some of these options.
Yeah, and a little known fun fact, Tom, you're also an entrepreneur. You had your own company in Austin, Texas, in yesteryear, and focused on building houses that were solar. So just a little fun fact on Tom.
Net zero energy construction and a solar company, yes.
And Kerry, you're the new kid on the block. So for the Tech Tuesday audience, please introduce yourself and what you do up on YouTube.
Well, thanks, Harry. So I started off as a as a car mechanic, and it flipped into my hobby, which was computers back before the internet. Went to work for the power company. Ironically or coincidentally, one of my first jobs was working for Arizona Public Service and then the Salt River Project, the two big power companies in the Phoenix metropolitan area, in not dealing anything with power, but just desktop support for all the employees, thousands of employees around the state. And it evolved into writing an opportunity to author a book, and then that led into a nationwide radio program for about 6 years. And through that led to what is now my YouTube channel, and became self-employed after working for the large corporations with all the bureaucracy and red tape. I just got sick of it and have been self-employed for a little over 20 some odd years. I'm not counting anymore. And more and more shifting more of my energy to YouTube now. It's kind of started out a little slow as just a fun little thing to do, and it's now become a serious source of income. And I'm sort of balancing now between being a technician and having real customers, and then coming in from the trenches and sharing those real stories with my audience versus, say, a hobbyist or enthusiast, which, let's face it, YouTube's filled with a lot of hobbyists and enthusiasts, and having people in industry, I think, is very important to offset what's happening, with the abundance of YouTube videos, where nothing wrong with a hobbyist or enthusiast, but they're just oversaturated. Me personally, I'd love to see experts in the industry like Kevin Hunter. I think, Tom, you would be a great addition. Well, Facebook is a great platform. YouTube, it's really the audience that you want, because I think it's the second most visited website on the planet. And so there's no reason you have to give up one for the other. In fact, LinkedIn also might be a good resource for you. And one thing you could do, I haven't done it yet, but I'm looking into it. There's a service called StreamYard.com. And StreamYard enables you to broadcast to all these platforms simultaneously. You just feed your main video feed to StreamYard, and then they stream it out for you to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's, Twitter, or not Twitter, Twitch, et cetera, et cetera. And it might be something worth looking into. Now, it's not a free service, but on the other hand, if that equates to gaining more viewers, then it'll certainly pay for itself in no time. Alternately, just starting a YouTube channel with nothing more than a webcam and doing what you're doing on Facebook, in time, you'll, of course, build an audience there as well. And I think you'll find it's a much larger, more diverse audience, certainly worldwide.
Well, and Kerry, that's kind of the takeaway is Tom is you, and you are Tom. Tom is starting today with his YouTube journey based on an organic group of over 300 people interested in rational energy conversations. And Kevin, maybe you resemble that too. I know you're well known on Tech Tuesday because it's your network, Northwest Digital News, but maybe you want to set the table about how you started, and you are Tom and Tom is you.
Well, I come to the game here today having a media background similar to Carey, and got into the YouTube space. And this is one of the really key differences. There's a number of things that Carey's pointing out, some of the differences, but I think about Facebook, and Facebook is kind of a one and done audience. If I'm to post a video there and people watch it today, it might get some traction in the coming days or weeks down the road, but very unlikely. It's almost like a flowing river that's going by you, and if you didn't see the duck in the pond today, it's gone. And that's kind of the way stuff works on Facebook, whereas on YouTube, the audience, it's interesting because if you create good content there, the audiences for that can actually continue to get larger for content that you did years ago. I shared a little here off air, one of the videos that I created back in 2012, and that video still does very impressive results, and it's 8 years old. And you're like, wow. So if that video had, if I had created a Facebook video, it would have been forgotten back in 2012. So,
Kevin, I just want to interrupt you for a minute because you're absolutely right, and I hadn't even thought of that. But when you're doing a Google search on a subject, Facebook videos don't appear. But YouTube videos do. And I've had a YouTube video perform very, very poorly, and then a year later, suddenly the view numbers skyrocketed. It was the weirdest thing. But that would never happen. It would be unlikely to happen on Facebook.
So I might interject. And also on Facebook, one of the limitations that I find is, you might just be browsing along and see an interesting topic or conversation, start into it, don't have time to respond, and then, suddenly log off, got to go come back, and you can't find it again. And it was like, it was just there. This is recent content, and now I got to try to search down whoever posted it and troll them a little bit to get back to it. So I really appreciate what you're saying. There's that more permanency on YouTube.
Yep. So question, Kevin, let's maybe get a little procedural, and then we'll also get Carey's input. So we're literally starting at day 0 with Tom Benkert in Anchorage, Alaska. We're talking energy, and we want to take his domain expertise. We want to take an audience he's built, and we want to blow it out on YouTube. So number one, we got to create a YouTube channel. Number two, after we do that, Kevin, what are some of the things that are effective? You've lectured in the past on learning styles, and I think you had the 4 rules: education, entertainment. Why don't we revisit that quickly?
Well, one of the first things I want to start with is actually share, I think, a little fun story with a great business coach that I've worked with here in the United States. Done a lot of content with him as well for YouTube. But I attended one of his quarterly meetings, and over 90-some business people showed up to that. And one of the first things he said, and is really my advice here to Tom, is you absolutely have to know who your audience is that you're trying to target with this. If you're just trying to throw, shotgun content out there and going, well, let's see what sticks. I think you absolutely have to know who your audience is that you're trying to go after. And it's kind of, when you think about, some of the differences between YouTube and the type of media that it is, and then we think back to traditional media, because both Kerry and I had a background in radio, but what has happened to radio today, and what has happened to TV, and what's happened to newspapers and all these traditional forms of media. And it's kind of funny, because I think part of the problem with traditional forms of media, it's not just that they're there and gone at the moment, but they've also they don't zero in on who their target specifically is either. And to illustrate this, I had a TV network not long ago came and approached me and asked me about considering doing a broadcast on their TV network. And one of their questions, these are the executive producers on the show, one of the questions they asked me is, how do I know that my content is of interest to everybody? And my question back to them was, what do you think? What makes you think I'm trying to reach everybody? And so it was actually quite a funny conversation. But I was like, you're telling me that you have no sniper focus to what you're doing. So I think you really have to understand who your audience is that you're trying to reach, and you got to start with that, because, like I said, just shotgunning something out there and seeing what sticks. You can do the slow cook and you'll find out what sticks eventually over time. But if you want to take off out of the gate like a rocket, figure out who your audience is and start going right after that audience. And I'll give you kind of an interesting illustration of how important that can be. A channel that I work with a lot, and I actually have several YouTube channels that I put various content out on, but the one that I want to talk about today is the one that I have my automotive content on. Yeah. And so when you think about the type of stuff that I talk about in the show, people might be thinking that this is primarily an audience that wants to save money. And they'd go, okay, so that's the focus. I'm going, actually, no, that's still too broad, because in the very rich, affluent people, they want to save money, all the way down to the person who has, 300, 400 credit and their whole profile is just in shreds. They're also interested in saving money. But the way they go about doing things is quite a bit different. And to share with you where, my audience had steadily built over years. And then I was kind of wrestling with, should I put this particular topic up or shouldn't I? But it was a video on whether or not you should say that you're paying cash up front if you're a cash buyer. Now, a lot of people listening to the show today might go, oh, that's only like 1% or 5% or a really small little niche market of people who pay cash for their cars. No, it's not. I put that video up on why you shouldn't say you're paying cash up front and the strategy that had to be deployed to do that. And that video did over 1 million views in the first 48 hours that it was up. And it was just mind blowing what happened with that thing. And I was like, you know what? I have a really affluent audience that's following me. And
Not necessarily. If I watched that video. In fact, I watched that video last night, and I'll tell you exactly why I watched it. I have never once paid cash for a car. I don't know if I'll ever have that kind of money in my life to ever pay cash for a car, but I've been told my whole life, cash is king, and if you walk in with cash, you'll get a better deal on that car. And here comes this guy with a YouTube video saying that's not true. Nobody ever said that's not true. I've only heard it one way my whole life. You're the first person to debunk that, although that's kind of a recent change, right? This cash fee.
Yeah, it's actually been in the making for a number of years now. But yeah, it's because of the business model that happens in the car business as to why cash isn't king. And
but that doesn't mean I'm affluent because I watched your video. I watched your video because it was debunking something that nobody had ever said before, that no one's ever told me that before.
Right, but here, so part of also my comment comes from feedback. So both emails and comments that have happened on the channel since the posting of that video. The very subjects that people are asking me to touch on, one of the things we have on the drawing board right now is for leased vehicles. The last year, the last quarter, all vehicles that were leased, they were average of 725 beacon scores that leased all the cars in the last 90 days. And you're going, okay, so that's a very accomplished FICO score. It's somebody who's good at managing their money. So when I said affluent, that's kind of the audience that I was talking about there. And they're asking me to create more content that's around the interest of that crowd. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to necessarily argue with that, because that weekend that video blew up, I put 22,000 subscribers on my channel in 48 hours. So it was like, okay, so there's a grand slam. And I've, videos I put up on a regular basis, a lot of people would look at them and go, wow, you're hitting home runs like pretty much every time you do a video. And that's largely true. But once in a while you get back-to-back grand slams, and that was that video on the weekend it went up. And it was just absolutely amazing what happened with that. So part of the reason it did as well, there's more to it than just this, but part of the reason it did as well is when you talk about understanding who your audience was, and we decided, what the heck, let's go ahead and do it, and let's hit the cash buyer and see what happens. And it was pretty amazing.
Kerry, Kerry, I'd like to follow up on that. So Kevin started this part of the conversation about knowing your audience, and I want to talk to you about your demographic personas. I've been a guest on your channel and tracked you as well. So tell us about your theme, your persona, your demographic, and so on.
Well, there's some things that tie in to what Kevin's saying. I'm going to say it entirely differently, but I think we're kind of saying the same. Maybe. I don't know. And I think, Tom, for you to take away from this is there's no right or wrong way. I set out to make videos I wanted to watch, and I could give a rat's behind if anybody else watched them, because I was doing it because I wanted to at my expense and my time, and I felt like there needs to be a video like this because there aren't none that meet what I want to see, so I'm going to make it. And hopefully there'll be some people like me who will enjoy it. I didn't know there were 300,000 people like me. I did not intend my audience to be a bunch of old men. I thought I was making how-to videos for teenagers, and I was talking to them in a way that you would talk to teenagers, and I'm getting comments from people, many people my age or within a 20 to 30 year range. So, I'm 51 years old, and the majority of my viewers are between 48 and 54. I don't know why. Maybe just birds of a feather flock together. I don't know. But I also have my intended audience, which was teens, and I have a bunch of 70 and 80-year-old men building computers for the first time, and it inspires me because I think, there's a generation that's sort of a digital immigrant. They weren't brought up with this stuff, and I hear over and over again, because I live in Arizona, there's a large retirement community, how I'm too old to learn this stuff. And I love the inspiration that I get from some of my viewers. And I was recently asked what my goal was, and my goal, I said, was 1 million subscribers. And they said, well, what makes you think you can get to 1 million subscribers? I go, well, it doesn't make any sense that I have 300,000, so it doesn't make any sense that I shouldn't have 1 million. I mean, if it's kind of crazy. I never intended or thought that many people would be interested. And further, I did not consider the worldview. I like to ask my audience, I think I might have done that when you were on, Harry.
Yeah.
When I'm live, I say, where are you watching me from? Yeah. Australia, New Zealand, Slovenia, Slovakia, Italy, Germany, Canada, Europe, all over Europe, England. It's an incredible reach that we have, and I try to be responsible with it. But at the end of the day, I build a lot of computers, and this kind of will go back to a little bit about what Kevin said. And somebody said to me one time, they said, Kerry, I would watch more of your videos, but you do a lot of the same thing over and over again. I said, I only intended to show how to build a computer one time. And I don't know why people like to watch me build computers, even though it's kind of the same process, different parts, but it's the same process. And those videos generate the most views and therefore generate the most amount of money. So guess what? I'm building a lot of computers. Not that it was my idea. It's just that if I want the views and the money, and quite frankly, as a tech, I have to build the computer anyway. So why not film it and kind of double dip, right? The customer's paying me for the computer, plus I'm getting views, and I have no idea, honestly, why people are so fascinated watching me do the same thing over and over, but I'm not fighting it. But at the same time, it's not the only thing I do. I still do what I want to do. I have interviews, like bringing on Harry was something I've wanted to do for years. And I talk about music. It's my channel, and I do whatever the heck I want to do. So it depends on your motivation, Tom, and what you're trying to accomplish, right? If it's an outlet for you, if it's a way to just have a conversation, a rational conversation about energy, and there's no agenda, there's nothing you're trying to sell, there's no concept or idea that you're trying to convince others of, then I think the rule book is open for you to play it however you want to play it. And the key would be to just keep making more content. My opinion, not that it matters, but on energy is I feel like we live in a world of absolutes. People are looking for absolute solutions. But when you drive through the United States, you'll hit areas where there's a bunch of wind farms. Well, why are they not everywhere? Because there's not wind everywhere, And you'll run into areas where there are solar panels, like in Arizona. Well, why aren't there solar panels in Michigan? Well, probably because the snow covers them up, So each area in the United States has a better energy solution, and that there isn't just one that fits everybody equally, and that it's appropriate for the environment, in my opinion. And those kind of discussions where we're removing those absolutes, and I think that's my most frustrating part, are in the political sense of absolutes. Well, we're going to do this, and they go, well, but that doesn't solve it 100%. Why does it have to solve it 100%? It takes it 60 or 70%, and we'll make up the rest. We're still, as a species, evolving, and we're getting there. But I think that different energy solutions are right for the environment that they're in. And, I guess my question for you, Tom, is what are you looking to achieve from building a YouTube channel and an audience?
Tom, if you would hold your response to that real quick, because I want to just capture something real quick that Kerry said. So I was talking about focus, and I'm listening to Kerry, and what I'm hearing is focus, because what he started with was people just like him who are interested in the things that he's interested in. So who he is and what he's interested, that was his focus when he started. So don't lose the thing that you need to start with some kind of focus. And now where his focus has shifted, if it has shifted at all, is making more of what his audience is, what he's gaining traction on. So he's paying attention to what people are viewing and what's being shared and what's more viral, and focusing on that kind of content. So again, it ties into focus. Just make sure you know what you're focusing on. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. You both, Kevin, Kerry, great input. Gives me a lot of food for thought. Again, this is something I just wanted to create a dialogue, and talk about, as Kerry got it right on the head, which is this is not a world of absolutes, and also what you said, Kevin, about price. I mean, for 10 years, I sold solar systems. I sold a couple hundred of them. Guess how many I sold just because of the environmental aspect of it, as opposed to the cost savings?
Yeah.
Wow.
One.
Okay.
Okay.
One for the environment, and the rest for the cost. Just to clarify.
Yes, that's correct. Everyone ranging from Fortune 500 CFOs in the San Francisco Bay Area to a cop and his wife that works at the diner. A wide range of people. My channel, Harry's the one that's kind of put me onto this, kind of cracking my head open. I did that sort of as an outlet, and then for the last like 2 years, I'm actually working in the field, so I've kind of ignored the content and the people there and haven't engaged as much. But I have a range of people in my audience, from very conservative to very liberal. Some people want nuclear power. Let's talk about the advances in nukes. Let's talk about the new windmills. Let's talk about X, Y, and Z. So my main focus is energy. A lot of the folks on there I put in the environment, so I get a lot of recycling and things and this and that. Those are not areas of expertise, so I probably would, focus it more into the energy conversation. And you've given me a lot to think about. So I appreciate that.
Well, Tom, if you don't mind, I'm on your page on screen number 2, and I have a little bit of a media background and analyst background, and I'm looking over a lot of the posts on your Facebook, and it looks like you have built-in content. So assuming you have a few hundred posts, and each of those could potentially be a video. So I'm looking at coal miners being retrained as beekeepers in the Appalachian Mountains. You've got built-in content, right, that you can draw from. Hey, Kevin, before we start to kind of wrap up visit number 1 with Tom, and Tom, we're going to come back to you in a couple of months and check in and see how you're doing and continue to coach you. Kevin, a talk we had on the SMB Nation side on a webinar, a talk we've had here, were sort of the 4 things: entertainment, education. If you could maybe kind of revisit some of the pillars for Tom to take away and start to play around with this. And Kerry, I'm going to ask you the same question.
So one of the things that people get really, one of the problems they have with YouTube type content and a real kiss of death to their YouTube channels. When you think about my area, which is the automotive area, I think every single dealership in the country has their own YouTube channel, and they're putting up all kinds of videos. And you wonder, well, how is it that they've had a YouTube channel for 3 or 4 years and they got maybe 10,000 views total on the entire channel on hundreds and hundreds of videos? And you're like, what happened? It's like, so when you're on YouTube, you cannot get salesy. When you sit here and say, hey, we got the deal of the week and we're the best because of whatever, people go, gag me. That's not why I'm on the internet. I'm here to be educated, informed, or entertained. So you got to do those 3 things. And when you walk outside of that and say, I'm going to start selling you stuff, people tune out really, really quickly. So it's not to say you can't sell something, but if that's the crux of your message, you'll be dead in the water before you even get started. So just remember, educate, inform, entertain, and your audience is going to love you over time. There's I also pay a lot of attention to the type of content that really blows up on the web. And there are things that motivate people a lot more than others. And we have been talking around this subject in the things we've been sharing here today, but a really big one is money. So what makes a lot of my content work is I share with people how to defeat this monster that wants to take all their money from them. When I think about Kerry's content and, some of the videos I've seen him do, a lot of people would like to build their own PC or do those things. And it saves you money if you can, but how do you do it? And so again, all of that is about saving money. I think if you can hit people's pocketbooks with what you're talking about energy-wise, Tom, it'd be a really, really big deal. And then the learning style thing. So these are just kind of a quick drink from a fire hose. But when I talked about learning styles, my video takes into consideration that, first of all, there are 7 learning styles, but out of the 7, there are 3 that are the number 1, number 2, and number 3 for all of us. So they're not in the same order, but here's what the 3 are. People either like to read, they like to listen to music, or they like to watch a movie. So you'll know what your primary learning style is. Tonight, when you're just wanting to veg out and stop thinking about all this YouTube conversation and everything else, you're going, I just want to relax so my brain can go to sleep. Do you pick up a book? Do you listen to some music? Do you watch a movie? And one of those 3 is going to be your primary learning style, because that's the one that allows your brain to just, you learn easy that way. The other 2 are your number 2 and number 3. So like I said, it doesn't matter which order. So essentially, when I produce a video, I take into consideration somebody's watching me and a graphic presentation that I'm creating. So I'm appealing to that visually inspired person. I'm also doing the voiceover on it. So I'm talking to the person who likes to hear the audio side of things. And then I reinforce everything I say and what I'm showing them with text on the screen. So the funny part is in my own household, my wife doesn't actually really enjoy video that much at all. She wouldn't spend really any kind of time on YouTube at all. But she has told me several times, she goes, I really enjoy how you do these. And she'll watch it and share the message that she gets out of it without getting bored. And well, my little secret is she likes to read. So, so that's the funny part about it is that if you're hitting those 3 learning styles, and remember the reading, the auditory, the visual. And so I'm doing those 3 things regularly. I'm making sure that I'm informing, educating, and I add some sarcasm and jokes and stuff like that into my content all the time. So give people a little entertainment if you can. And then going back to that thing of focus on your audience, know who you are. I mean, I could create great content, perhaps on, a health related subject. I'm a 17, 18 year survivor of rheumatoid arthritis and don't have arthritis symptoms today. I could do that, but I'd have to do it on a different subject. If I started broadcasting all kinds of stuff about arthritis on my automotive channel, people go, who are you and what did you do with Kevin? So it's maintaining that focus is a really big thing.
And Kerry, before you respond to that, I just want to give you a shout out. When we got together a little over a week ago and did a 60-minute show, and you were streaming live, and that was interesting to me. But again, going back to built-in content and understanding your personas, we had hundreds of live comments, screens going down the crawler while we were on the air, and I'll tell you, I would die for that at SMB Nation, but that really stood out in terms of a feedback loop, and then also coming up with ideas. But maybe if you want to take the same question as we start to wrap up, quick hitters for Tom in terms of takeaways, and we'll then see Tom after mid-year.
I'm a simple man. I don't think this through like Kevin. I just make videos I'd want to watch in a way that I would understand them for people that are like me. I'm a visual person. I need to see it. I was once repairing my car back in the day. I had a Haynes repair manual, and I don't know what I was fixing, but I will never, ever forget the instructions. Kevin may understand them. I don't think anybody else in this room will. Remove the left nut torque converter bolt from the bell housing. Now, my first question was, what side of the car is the left side? Couldn't they have said passenger side or driver's side? Or maybe I'm laying under the car this way and it's the front or the back. What does a torque converter bolt look like, and what the heck is a bell housing? That's step one, So I didn't know what to do. And I said, I know what I'll do. I'll flip the page and I'll read the installation instructions, and I'll do them backwards. Flip the page, installation at one step. It said, and I swear to God, installation is opposite of removal. I said, why do I need this book? If you knew this, why would you buy this book? So when I wrote my book, I said, I'm going to write a book my mother could understand, right, for computers. And I didn't care if anybody else got it. So my attitude is, I want to make content that I understand. I want to make any content I want. If I want to make a cooking video on my computer channel, I do it. I was so frustrated because I film in my kitchen and people said, you ever cook in your kitchen? I was like, fine, you know what? Enough of this. I'm going to show you how to make, instead of a gaming computer, I'm going to show you how to make a gaming pizza. There's one thing gamers like, it's pizza. And so I made a pizza. Now, that video did as good or better than a $10,000 computer build, and it cost me $6 to make a pizza, and I was hungry and I wanted to eat anyway. Right? So sometimes, now I don't do that regularly, but you've got a fraction of viewers that go, hey, you going to make any more cooking videos? So I allow myself to sort of mix it up a little bit so it's not the same old routine. I think humor is very important. Tech is a very dry subject. Buying a car isn't exactly a laugh a minute. And energy, it's just not a funny subject. So I think if you can make it lighthearted, I think people appreciate that. Just kind of take it as sort of like, what are you going to do, right? You got this, but on the other side, you got that. And if you can come at it from an industry standpoint that perhaps isn't obvious to the rest of us, if you can say, you may not realize, but solar actually, has this side effect or this benefit that people don't talk about. I think that's important to get that information out to sort of help counter the general thoughts of what everybody knows in general about solar or about coal or about nuclear power. I bet you have information that the rest of us don't have that would be very much appreciated by people, and especially if making that decision that there were benefits they hadn't considered or consequences they hadn't considered that people only learn after they make that decision and go, I wish I would have known this before, or if I had known this before, I would have done it sooner. That would be a real value that you would bring to the channel.
So before before we have Tom bid farewell and Kevin take us out, I got to have a little fun. I like the idea of fun, by the way, since we're talking cars. This book, one of the books I did, and Kerry, this is from our world, the old MCSE exam cram, and this was a fun one. It was like 4 exams in one book, and this is back when these things were thick. And do you know what the publisher did? This was Osborne McGraw-Hill, and my editor. They had me go by, and the two of you are going to correct me. Was it called the Chilton Auto Manuals, or? Mm-hmm. It was correct. It was a paradigm for auto books, and he said, take the auto book and use that same paradigm for exam cram. So that's
also my publisher, McGraw-Hill, and I had an interesting argument with them that I wanted a book that was going to be appealing and not intimidating. And as the book was getting thicker, I said to the publisher, I said, we can't make the book this thick and say it's an easy to understand for everybody book. It's a contradiction if it's this thick, right? That's for, people that really want to get specific. And you raise an interesting point there, or just by chance, that you can't sort of contradict yourself. I think that's the important thing. Don't say you're making a video, entitle it one way and then talk about something else entirely. And then also feel free to play with your titles. Just because you release a video on YouTube, and I don't think you can do this on Facebook, but on YouTube, if your video is not performing well, you can experiment with changing the title around a little bit, and you might find finding the right keywords just through experimentation results in more views. And it's something you can do endlessly for years and years and years. It's not a one and done like it is on Facebook. And Facebook is a great place to get your feet wet. And it's for you to step into YouTube now, you're going to have a heads up versus somebody who didn't have any prior broadcasting on social media before. So it'll be a very natural switch over for you, I think. But the results will be more positive. You'll get more results.
Yeah,
Kerry hit the nail on the head with the video type titles, because there's a classic example here. Just maybe in the last 30 days, I had put a video up on car pricing, and the day or two after it had been posted, my wife is actually doing a search on hashtags and trending subjects, and she said, I think you should add 0% financing right in the title of that video. So I went in and edited it, and I'm not kidding. Within the next hour, it started doing about 1,000 views an hour more than it had. And that was right in the middle of the day. And I follow this stuff statistically enough to know that there was no reason for that bump other than a change in the words in the title. So that was it.
Well, Tom, as we bid farewell to you, and we're going to come back and visit you again, but maybe two or three things that you got out of today's boot camp, this technology makeover.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you had said, Kevin, is not selling people something, and that's one of the rules that I've had on my Facebook page. I've had a couple of people come in from industry, and they start advertising. I'm like, hey, this isn't what this is all about here. This is for sharing information and so forth. But I can't blame you for trying. And also, no political bashing or name calling. This is not for that. You can go anywhere you want on the internet if you want to yell at somebody anonymously and have bad cyberbullying behavior. Not allowed here. Obviously, nobody, there's some of that will happen in some of the comments, depending on, since my topics are a little bit more controversial. But I think also the idea of, this is saving money and going, this is a way for you to look at for your home, for your business, is to cut through that, high pressure salesman's pitch or some sales presentation that really doesn't present you with all the information, trying to sell you something like Kerry said that, wow, I should have done this 3 years ago versus, God, I wish I'd never done this because there's something else out there. So I think creating those kinds of informed things help. And on the third topic, as you brought up, Harry, I have a lot of content, a lot of the one of the reasons I started that rational, energy and environment page is I'd see really great articles that inspired thought and comments in me, and I wanted some place to put those, and then memorialize my comments. So then as people started reacting very positively towards that, and also, people have posted things which I'm not that good at sitting there in a void, and I work best in response or reaction to something rather than just making it up. So I think even posting an article, say, hey, look at this, let's talk around this subject area, what the perspective in this article is and whatnot, and hopefully I can do that without copyright issues or what have you. But I think media these days, the rules have been kind of nerfed on that, and bylining and everything under federal law anyway, because now it seems like anybody can comment on anything that anybody has said or written on the internet. So you've given me a lot of food for thought. Very, very insightful. I very much appreciate your time and your integrity and your background and intelligence on this subject, and I'm looking forward to getting started on this.
Well, one last
Alrighty.
thought for you, Tom, just real quick. YouTube by default enables all comments, which I hate, and I have zero tolerance for bullying or what I call establishing dominance on my channel. And the bigger I get, the more attacked I get. So make sure when you do make your YouTube channel, have your public information pretty well hidden, because what will happen is when you get what you want, assuming you want success, you want a big audience, a portion of that audience will want to teach you a lesson for any reason. They just want to prove to you you don't know everything, and it's entertainment for them. There is a psychological warfare happening on YouTube with the intention to break the YouTuber. It's a video game for some people. So what I do is, by default in my YouTube videos, I hold all comments for review. So nothing gets published unless I click OK. If somebody's particularly nasty, I have the option to flag it to YouTube as abuse, or my preference, hide the user from the channel so they can still watch my videos, but they have nothing to add of value, clearly, and I don't want to hear from them. And my block list is quite huge, but it's different from Facebook. When you block someone from Facebook, they can't see your content. This way they can still see my content, I just don't need to hear their nonsense. And then another idea for you then is to look through those thoughtful comments and make a video addressing them, because YouTube is supposed to be interactive, which radio and TV and newspaper are not. Take advantage of that and interact with your audience.
Well, excellent.
Yeah, I'm going to break my own rule. Kevin, you want to reply to that? You're a public figure. Have you experienced some of the trolling, and also have you used feedback to generate content? And then we'll call it good.
Yeah, I'm actually doing something fairly similar to what Kerry is. There's also in YouTube, there's filters in which you can earmark given kinds of words. So I take all the profanity words and things like that, and they're all in my defaults on the channel. So the minute somebody uses them, their comment gets thrown off into another folder, and it sits there till one of us gets around to looking at it, and we'll decide whether it's appropriate or not. So there's we do filter a lot, and I have a lengthy block list too. So it's you gotta use that. I mean, when you think about why Kerry started doing this, you wanted to create content that people like him wanted to see, and he certainly wasn't looking for a hard time out of this. You don't have to deal with the knuckleheads, and they exist. So, when they come along, just kick them to the curb and keep going. It's kind of funny because I even think about my like to dislike ratio, and I'm really proud of the fact that I regularly post videos that get this 98.5 or 99% like to dislike ratio, and I think that's awesome. But it still cracks me up because I'm going, no matter how hard you try, there's that percentage that are like, I don't like this, and it's hilarious because some of my commenters, the followers are commenting and go, who was the idiot who would click dislike on this video? But they're there, and you just live with it. And like I said,
they're a small minority, but they're very loud. And my joke, Kevin, is I could give away $100 bills on my channel, and there'd be a couple of people telling me I'm not doing it correctly.
And you didn't notify us in time, so I could be in line too.
People think you will. So, Tom, I'm just warning you. There are people who think that it's a prerequisite to get their approval before you post their video, even though they're nobody that you would ever have heard of or look up to or your peer. They want you to know what their opinion is of your content that they think you specifically made for them. That is a small portion, but man, are they loud. But don't let that dissuade you, because the more of that you get, that means you're being more successful. It's a twisted world, but it's actually a sign of success.
Thank you. Yeah, I have about 10, 15 years in sales and business development, so I appreciate your comments. I usually get that in my face.
Oh,
Well, hey,
well,
I had a video
yeah,
that had 5 million
on the
views
internet,
on
they
it.
don't have. On the internet, they don't have the
This guy
guts
got
to show up to
particularly
your face.
caustic one day, just criticizing everything I had done to put the video together. And I responded back to him and I said, I really wish I would have heard from you 5 million views ago, because who knows, I could have had 10 or 15 or 20 million views by now. So doggone it, I missed out on that opportunity. But
Well, hey,
well, so that's the
Kevin.
way it rolls. Well, you know what, Tom, we'll look forward to connecting with you again down the road. And nice to meet you on the virtual broadcast, Kerry. And we'll have to touch base here as well offline. And by the way, the next time, if you think about going out to a dealership and doing some car buying, give me a shout. I'd be glad to go along with you and have a little fun. So why
Oh,
not?
I would. Can I bring my camera and make a YouTube video out of it?
Oh, absolutely, we'd do that.
Yes,
All right, Kevin Hunter with Harry Brelsford here on Tech Tuesday. Tom and Kerry have been our special guests, and just take a look right here in this box right below me will be the links to get in contact with them. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Till next time, take care.